The crowd pressed closer to the stage, boots grinding dust into the cracked earth, voices rising like a cruel chorus under the lantern-lit sky. Heat clung to the air, not from sun or fire, but from the weight of eyes fixed on the lone figure displayed before them. Celine stood rigid at the center, wrists bound in iron, hair disheveled and streaked with sweat. Every breath she drew felt like swallowing glass. The auctioneer's voice cut through the night, booming with false cheer. "Here she is, folks, the Omega no one wants. Who'll start the bidding?" A ripple of laughter followed, sharp as knives. Men jostled one another, spitting tobacco, their jeers slicing deeper than any chain could. Celine lowered her gaze, trying to hide the flush of humiliation staining her cheeks, but the sting of shame refused to be hidden. She had learned long ago that the world delighted in her suffering. Once, her family's name commanded respect. Once, her smile had carried warmth instead of bitterness. But betrayal, false whispers of treachery, had stripped all that away. Now she was nothing but a spectacle, a body paraded for men with too much coin and too little soul. The auctioneer paced like a wolf circling prey. Strong enough for labor. Pretty enough for those with a taste for scraps. He leaned close, his sour breath fanning her cheek. "She won't bite unless you ask her to." The crowd roared again, laughter mingling with spit hitting the dirt. Celine closed her eyes, willing herself elsewhere. She saw herself as a girl, barefoot in meadows, laughter chasing the wind. She remembered her mother's hands braiding her hair, her father's proud eyes. Those ghosts mocked her now, reminders of everything she had lost. A tremor slipped through her chest. Half rage, half grief. If she allowed tears, they would savor them. So she gave none. The silence that followed the auctioneer's first call was louder than any shout. No bids came. Men smirked, some shaking their heads, others spitting to punctuate their disgust. "Not worth a mule's feed," one called. "Cursed girl," another sneered. The words hit harder than stones, but Celine forced her chin higher. If no one wanted her, let her stand unwanted. Better that than belonging to hands that saw her as nothing but dirt. Going once. The gavel lifted. Going twice. Bootsteps thundered across the planks, a sound that stole the breath from the crowd. They were heavy, deliberate, each one landing like a drumbeat of fate. The auctioneer faltered mid-sentence, eyes widening. A hush spread, whispers slithering through the assembly. Celine opened her eyes and froze. He stood at the edge of the stage, tall and unyielding, framed by the dim glow of lantern light. His coat, black as midnight, stirred with the wind. His presence was not loud, yet it devoured the space around him. The Alpha King. Damien. His name rippled through the crowd, carried on hushed lips. Men who had been laughing moments ago now shifted uneasily. Suddenly remembering spines could be broken as easily as twigs. Celine's pulse quickened. She had heard stories of him. Warrior, ruler, man of ruthless victories. His scars were etched not just on skin but on the memory of every rival who dared oppose him. He did not take Omegas. He did not take anyone. He ruled alone, untethered, feared. So why was he here? The auctioneer stammered, suddenly stripped of his mockery. "Why, your majesty, surely you don't." "I'll take her." Damien's voice rolled like distant thunder. Calm yet absolute. No flourish, no hesitation. Just command. Gasps broke from the crowd. Some muttered disbelief. Others smirked nervously as if it must be some cruel jest. The auctioneer blinked, scrambling for words. "One bid, then." "You." "One bid," Damien repeated, and with that the gavel dropped. Final. Celine's body went rigid. Confusion surged like wildfire. Why her? Of all people, why would he claim the Omega no one wanted? She searched his face for mockery, for cruelty, for some hidden motive, but his expression revealed nothing. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, seemed to burn through her, stripping away every layer of defense she had left. The chains rattled as he stepped forward, hand closing around them. But instead of yanking her down like a beast, he twisted, metal screeching as he tore the lock apart with his strength. The manacles fell, clattering to the stage. The sudden weightlessness startled her more than the restraint ever had. For the first time in years, her wrists were free, though freedom tasted foreign on her tongue. Damien leaned close, so only she could hear. His breath was warm against her ear. His words low and deliberate. "You're mine now. And I don't let what's mine rot." Her heart stuttered, confusion battling with something dangerously like hope. The crowd remained frozen, caught between fear and curiosity, waiting to see what came next. Celine stood there, pulse hammering, as though the world itself held its breath. She did not yet know if this man was salvation or doom. But she knew the truth of that moment. Her fate had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same again. The night swallowed the road as the horse thundered across the barren plain, carrying Celine and the man who had just claimed her. Wind tore at her hair, and every jolt of the saddle pressed her closer against the iron-hard body of the Alpha King. She wanted to recoil, to demand answers, but the rhythm of hoofbeats drowned every word before it could leave her lips. The land stretched endlessly, vast and merciless, lit only by the pale wash of moonlight. She could not tell whether she was riding toward deliverance or another kind of captivity. When at last they slowed, Damien dismounted with silent efficiency. His movements were precise, economical, the manner of a man who had lived too long with danger at his shoulder. He extended a hand to help her down, but she hesitated, suspicion coiled tight within her. His eyes flicked, sharp as a hawk's, and though his expression remained carved from stone, she sensed a flicker of impatience. Still, his hand remained steady. Against instinct, she placed her palm in his. His grip was firm, unyielding, but not cruel. He led her to a small clearing where he set about building a fire. Sparks leapt into the night as dry branches caught, flames blooming to life with a crackle. Celine lowered herself onto a fallen log, hugging her knees. The warmth licked her skin, but it did little to ease the chill that had lodged inside her since the auction. She studied him as he worked, the scar running from his temple to his jaw, the rigid line of his shoulders, the aura of command that clung to him even in stillness. At last he spoke, his tone flat yet edged with something she could not name. "You wonder why I bought you." Her throat tightened. She forced the words out. "I wonder why anyone would." A faint quirk touched his mouth, not quite a smile. "Because I don't let fools decide what has value. And you were about to be discarded like scraps. That doesn't sit well with me." Bitterness surged in her chest. "So I'm some act of charity?" He turned then, meeting her gaze fully, and she nearly flinched at the weight of it. "No," he said. "Charity is for the weak. You're not weak." The fire cracked, sending sparks skyward, filling the silence that followed. She wanted to believe him, wanted to see truth in his words, but doubt gnawed at her. If she wasn't weak, then why had she been abandoned? Why had no one lifted a hand to save her before tonight? The questions pressed hard against her ribs, yet she held them inside, unwilling to grant him a window into her brokenness. Hours stretched, the fire dimming to embers. Sleep came reluctantly, filled with fractured dreams of chains and laughter. When she woke, dawn painted the horizon in blood and gold. Damien was already astride his horse, scanning the distance with narrowed eyes. His posture stiffened, hand brushing the hilt of his weapon. "They followed us," he said, his voice low but certain. Celine's stomach dropped. Shapes appeared on the far ridge, riders armed and swift, their silhouettes sharp against the rising sun. The rival alphas. She had heard whispers of their cruelty, packs who thrived on fear, who mocked the weak for sport. Now their eyes were fixed on her, as if she were a prize worth stealing. Damien's command cut through her panic. "Stay low. Do not run." Gunfire cracked, shattering the morning calm. Horses screamed. The world exploded into chaos. Celine dove behind a boulder, heart hammering. Dust sprayed as bullets struck the ground around her. Damien moved with lethal precision, his shots sharp, deliberate, each one finding its mark. Yet the riders kept coming, wild and hungry. Her hand shook, but something inside her snapped. She would not be the helpless girl mocked on a stage. Grabbing a smoldering branch from the dying fire, she hurled it at one rider who had strayed too close. The horse reared, screaming, throwing its rider into the dirt. Celine's breath caught. Fear and exhilaration tangled together. For the first time in years, she felt the pulse of her own strength. Damien's glance found her in the chaos, and a grim spark lit his eyes. "Good," he barked, reloading with brutal calm. "Fight with me, not against me." The battle raged, swift and vicious, until the survivors pulled back, retreating with curses echoing in the morning air. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breaths of horse and rider. The ground was littered with dust and blood. Celine's hands were blackened with soot, her chest heaving. Damien dismounted, crossing to her. His gaze swept over her, not with pity, but with measured acknowledgement. "They'll come again," he said. "They don't forget easily. Neither do I." Her voice trembled, though she tried to steady it. "And me? What am I to you, really?" For a long moment he said nothing. Then, with deliberate care, he reached down and lifted the broken manacle still dangling from her wrist. With a swift twist, he tore it free and cast it aside. The gesture was simple yet final. His voice carried no softness, only truth. "You are not what they called you. You are mine because I chose it. And I do not choose lightly." Something cracked open inside her, not surrender, but the first spark of belief. She was still scarred, still uncertain, yet no longer the girl left to rot under jeering eyes. For the first time, she wondered if the story of her life had not ended in shame, but was only beginning. The sun climbed higher, gilding the plain in fire. Celine straightened, shoulders no longer bowed. The path ahead was perilous, perhaps even fatal, yet she felt the stir of something dangerous in her chest, resilience. Damien mounted again, extending his hand. This time, when she placed her palm in his, she did not hesitate. The road stretched forward, long and merciless. Whether it led to ruin or redemption, she would no longer face it bound in chains. And as the horse carried them toward the horizon, the thought came unbidden, fierce and certain. She had been rejected once, but she would never be unwanted again.